everything that could have gone wrong since yesterday has gone wrong. Probably not everything, I won't say that, thank you, Lord. But so many things have gone wrong that almost canceled, like, multiple times. Even, like, last night, at, like, 1 o'clock in the morning, I was thinking, man, it would be so much easier if I just canceled. But then like, forget all this, I can't do it, and nothing's working out. I haven't had any time. The kids are screaming, like they're getting hurt. Every time I've tried to focus, like it was crazy. But I knew that just meant I needed to be here more, even more. So it's kind of been like a war. It has been a war with the enemy. Like, nope, I'm going. So anyway, I'm really happy to be here. And
thank you.
I'm proud of myself for being here. Oh my gosh. Like, so, yeah, I know there's a lot of notes here. This is mostly for me, but then I felt like the Lord said, you know, make some lines, and if you want to jot something down, anything the Lord shows you, I just really feel like God's going to minister to some deep places in our heart today. He wants to, let me just pray real quick. Lord, thank you so much, God, for getting me here. Thank you for everybody that you got here. It's exactly who needs to be here. I pray, Father, that you would speak through me, and I empty myself out as a willing vessel for you, God. Hang-ups, mess, brokenness, and all, Lord. Thank you that you love using totally screwed up, messed up people that need you more than ever. So God, anoint my mouth, Father, and speak to every heart. Would you pierce every heart afresh? Would you awaken our hearts in a new way, that this wouldn't just be some goosebump message, that it would pierce through our hearts and it would plant in deep, rich soil, God. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Woo. Now I'm ready for a milkshake and a nap. Okay, so I just titled this, am I yelling? I've been yelling lately
No,
with
you're
kids.
fine.
I probably don't even need the mic. I called this Holes in Our Identity. And what I mean by holes, blind spots, pockets, holes, broken pieces. Often we don't even know they're there. So anyway, the Webster's World definition of identity is the distinguishing character or personality of an individual. So that's what the world says we should say that we are. I thought this was cool. God's definition of who we are. Genesis 1:27 is God. So God created mankind in his own image. So we were, for one, created on purpose, for a purpose, and in God's image. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. So we're also fully known by God. Like, that's profound. We don't even know who we are yet, but he does, and that's how he looks at us, which is great. Thank God. For we are God's masterpiece. We're his greatest work. Like, to think of all the galaxies and the planets and just all the stuff that he's done, even in heaven. He still looks at us as his greatest prize, his greatest masterpiece. Yet to all who did receive him, receive him, to those who believe and call upon his name, he gave us the right to become children of God. Now we're his sons and daughters. Like, legit, sons and daughters. He's our father. He's adopted us. It's amazing. And last but not least, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old things have passed away. Behold, all things, I should have bolded that. All things have become new. So our worldly identity is gone, and now our new identity is in Christ. Amen. So, all that to say, that's just the setup here. A little bit about me. I'm not going to do my whole like life story, but in a nutshell, at a very young age, I was sexually abused by multiple situations, and just pretty much the worst kind of situations you can imagine I dealt with. And so even by 5, I had already been raped and all those things, and just beyond what somebody can even that young can process, you know. So it's like I know things happened and I can look back and I'll have memories, but at the same time it's like, you know, God is so good. We're like these factories, and He makes it so that we can cope somehow. And the way I coped was running. And if I couldn't run, I would completely dissociate and I would go somewhere else. And I've had lots of inner healing and RTF and all those things, and I'm still doing all that. Like there's layer on layer on layer. But through that, parts of my soul just completely shattered. So it sounds really weird, and it kind of is, but it's true. You know, if a part of me had to break away from myself to not cope, to cope with what was happening, but then the other part of me was still there going through it, that part of my soul left. And so it can get confusing, but that's how people are so fragmented. You know, that's how, even the Bible says when we have sex with somebody, we're one. They get a part of our soul, we get a part of their soul. So our soul can be completely fragmented in pieces. And you don't have to go through like the most horrific stuff to have that happen, you know. I didn't even know that even really, I didn't realize how fragmented I was until I got saved. So by the time I was 9, I was completely suicidal. I was just always obsessed on dying. I would just be in my own world, started using drugs and alcohol, the whole thing, just self-medicating. Like it's like your textbook, exactly what happened. Anyone could guess. Let me guess. Did she turn to drugs? Absolutely. Did she start cutting? Totally. You know, it's just any way to ease the pain, I would. So by the time my mom passed away, when I was a teenager, I started starving myself and throwing up my food. I didn't even know why. Like, nobody taught me that. It's profound how spiritual, all these spiritual roots at the end of behavior, you know? How, at 9, I didn't even know what an eating disorder was, and something told me, you should go throw up your food. You should just starve yourself. Punch yourself in the stomach if you're hungry. Punch yourself in the face if you're gonna cry, because you need to get it together. You're a piece of crap. Stop crying. You know, I mean, I can't even, that was me, but at the same time, it's like, wow, I look at my daughter today and I can't even imagine, so there's still that separation, how in the world did that happen? But I'm here, and, so I was in a hospital for starving myself, and it was my 4th or 5th time, and my family, we all started going to counseling and started to turn things around as a family and communicating, and there was this hope for the first time, we were gonna make it, I was gonna make it. And I got home from the hospital, and my mom just suddenly died in her sleep 3 days later. And so what happened there was I I completely was devastated with shame and I always say it, regret, like just consuming. Like no matter how bad all my other problems were, nothing was worse than wasting all this time that I could have had with her. Being, like for me, being selfish and in the hospital again and always trying to kill myself and, you know, so I completely even more hated myself at that point. I ended up homeless and doing every kind of drug you can imagine, shooting heroin. I was completely strung out and selling my body if I had to for drugs. It like really didn't matter. Like at that point, you're just dead. It didn't matter. There was one time I woke up in a dumpster. So I had gotten beaten and strangled and I lived and I just woke up and just brushed myself off and found my dope and did it again the next night. It's like insanity. And fast forward, caught HIV along the way. Fast forward, was finally going to kill myself. Ended up in captive hearts through a series of miracles, like miracles. I came back here instead of blowing my brains out in a storage unit, and my dad's girlfriend talked me into trying rehab, and anyone that saw me then was just horrified. All she knew, and she wasn't saved at the time, but she's saved now, all she knew was I could not go back to LA. And she, you know, my dad and I were getting into it, just screaming at each other, almost just the same pattern. And we had all these expectations like everything was going to be better, and as soon as we saw each other, we'd go right back into that fighting, yelling, blaming, all that. And she stood up to him and said, no one has ever helped her. Please, like, I don't care what you think, I'm going to help her. She cannot go back to LA. She was just sobbing. We ended up pulling over, lost in a parking lot, and she had a number, this other rehab scribbled down that wouldn't take me, even though they had beds, but they saw me and they were like, no way, she's crazy. You know, she could kill us all in our sleep. Like, look at her, she's scary. We call the number and they're like, Rabobank, and it was the wrong number. And she just starts crying, and the lady on the phone says, this is so weird. I think you mean Captive Hearts. I work with Chaplain Judy's sister, Janice, and she just gave me their card the other day. Like, I'm actually looking at their number right now. So that was like crazy. And then I just, for the first time, felt the Spirit fill the car. And we called Captive Hearts, and she was crying. They said all the beds are taken. There's one bed left. The girl hasn't showed up yet. You can come fill out an app. And Debbie just starts begging them to please take me anyway. And she'll do anything if they just took me anyway. And Sid says, calm down, like just calm down and breathe. Where are you? And she says, we're lost. And I just pulled over. I can't drive anymore. And we tell her where we're at, and she says, you're parked in our back parking lot. The rest is history. Ended up going to the healing rooms, and because they didn't know what to do with me after a few weeks of me just being crazy off the hook. The demonic realm had completely infested the house. I was at one point in front of several women thrown across the room by a demon. My mattress flipped over and everything. So things weren't going really well, and so they took me to the healing rooms, and that was when I completely gave my life to the Lord. I didn't pray about having HIV or anything like that. I remember the only thing I wrote on my paper was, my prayer sheet was, well, it'd be cool if I don't go to prison, because I have some pending stuff, and I just want to breathe. Like, I've been holding my breath my whole life. I can't breathe. And that would just be the biggest relief if I could just take a breath and exhale. And sure enough, I just completely surrendered to the Lord. I said all these prayers. the pastor had a word for me. I didn't know it was for me, but Pastor Rick just began to speak, and then he was like taken back with emotion, and he just began to cry, and he said, somebody here has been in such a dark place. And I was, you're skeptical when you've been on the streets and all that, so I'm like, wow, this guy was gonna like say something, but legit, like something told him to say something else. And he said, you've been in such a dark place, and he began to cry. He's like, don't take your life. God is healing you now. You just don't take your life. You got to hold on. And then he's like, man, it's so dark. And I look over, and all the girls in the rehab are looking at me. So I was like offended, I'm like, what your problem is, we're all in rehab. We got nothing left to even pawn. So it's it. So anyway, I found out a couple months later I had been completely healed. My whole body, I'm HIV free. My heart is healed, the whole thing. That night I walked outside and I took the deepest breath into my lungs and exhaled that I've ever had. And I just couldn't believe it. It was amazing. And I tell people all the time, it's funny because I was so childlike and I was so innocent. Like the moment I got saved, I went out there with my cigarette and I was all, God is effing real, man. Like, he effing loves me, dude. Like, he loves you. Like, for real. Like, this stuff is, like, they're real in there. This isn't, like, fake. Like, do you know what just happened to me? And I'm smoking and all that. And, a girl walks by. I'm like, oh, she's kind of hot, But anyway, but back to God. I mean, he is effing real. Like, it's just crazy. I've never felt more free and loved, and like all that other crap just didn't matter. Like it's just, I always go to that when I feel like bound again by religion, by expectations, by God, are you there? I know I wasn't great yesterday. I know I dropped an F-bomb and I'm really working on that, and I did this and I yelled at Brian, and are you there? Anyway, that was like a total side note. So that's my story. Just to break this down, we'll go through this quick. I don't want to overwhelm everyone, which I probably already did with my notes. 19 minutes. That was good. I did good. Testimony in. That's the shortest I've ever done it. And the girl comment, God's healed all that too. Okay, I found my identity. It's not hating men. So there's one. Ooh. So past the notes. So this is really cool. Genesis 1:27, back to the God created mankind in his own image. I'm really digging the Mirror translation. I don't know if anyone's ever read that, but you can order it or you can get it online, the app. But they really break down exactly the original context of what it meant. So when you skip a little forward after they had eaten the fruit, in Genesis, it says, behold, Genesis 3:22, behold, the man who was already created like one of us, now also partook of the knowledge of evil. In the commentary, this is amazing, it says the idea of I am not who God says I am and created to be. The Greek word evil is poneos, full of labors, hardships, and annoyances, which tries to manage the I am not fruit of the tree. I am not good enough. And now, lest he puts forth his hand and take also the tree of life and live forever in this lost identity state. And that, but spoiler alert, my new last name is Goodenough. Wonder what mission I'm going to be on, I don't know. So, all of that to say, not only was my identity like robbed, but the truth is, I didn't stand a chance either way without Jesus. You know, I could have had the best life and popped up in a mansion somewhere, and if I didn't have Jesus, we all just end up in the same place. So skip to the next page, everyone. You'll be proud. Remember that time you said one day you're gonna actually prepare. You're not just gonna wing it. She's like, I don't mean this in a way, don't be offended. I just see from the Lord that you're gonna really step into a new place of preparation. I was like, is that it? She's like, yeah. I was like, oh, great word, thanks. Okay, so the main theme of tonight is knowing who we are in Christ has nothing to do with actually walking in it. So we all know who we are. Ever wonder why we're not walking in the fullness of our identity? Ever wonder why you're praying for people and they're not getting healed? It's like this, it's almost like this bipolar faith. It's like one day I got it, next day I don't know who I am. One day I know who I am, the next day I don't know anything. One day I hear God, the next day I think he's mad at me. It sucks. It totally sucks. I don't know about you, I'm tired of it. You know? So, I believe there's many reasons why all that can happen. You know, there's intimacy. If we're not spending time with God, how the heck are we supposed to be like him, right? There's obvious. There's, I truly believe fasting is a lifestyle. If you never tried it, I really encourage you. It doesn't mean you have to like starve yourself forever, but even just a meal, and instead of that meal, spend some time with the Lord. I mean, your spirit will awaken, like, immediately. If you want to tell your flesh to shut up, fast. Like, it's incredible. Living a sloppy life, that can kind of, like, affect our identity. But, so my holes in the identity, I also believe, I don't know why I skipped something, but anyway, yeah, so when we keep hurt and pain locked somewhere inside of us, you better believe it messes with our authority. It's really interesting. I've been learning a lot. It's funny, I'm walking through all of this right now. Trust and believe. So I'm learning a lot about a more excellent way. You know, have anyone not heard of that book? Amazing book. Like, even so I've been studying some of that. I actually need to order the book, but there's actually a website too, and you can type in symptoms and it'll tell you the spiritual root. And, you know, always weigh it with the Lord. It doesn't always mean this is it for sure, but it's really, really poignant. It's really amazing. So I was looking at, my mother-in-law has fibromyalgia. So I typed in fibromyalgia. And it says, the main root of fibromyalgia is when someone has been forced to operate in roles that weren't their own. They were the head of the household, the man left. They never had like a partner that met them halfway. They just operating in a role that wasn't their own. And sure enough, she had to raise all the kids, and right now her body has just been breaking down. You know, she held it together, and I'm like, man, that is so key. So anyway, that's just a total side note. But when we keep things locked inside of us, it completely messes with our identity. I'm calling it holes in our identity. In a nutshell, every unhealed place and need that we meet with worldly comfort instead of running to and meeting that need with the Comforter. I just feel like God is really, for me, and maybe it'll somebody else in here, but for me, he's exposing all these places where, like, the behavior is, okay, immediate gratification, or running, or overeating, all these things. Okay, so I'm not going to overeat, I'm going to diet, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, but I'm skipping ahead, but The truth is, we can yo-yo diet, we can do all these things that are going to make us better, we can pray more, we can do it all, but it's always going to lead back to our heart. And it's always about the heart. No matter what issue we have, it always goes back to the heart. And so I put, often we have open doors in our lives because we have partnered with the enemy unknowingly for comfort. Example, me, finding comfort in thinking about killing myself as a way that brought me temporary relief. I partnered with the spirit of suicide instead of the Prince of Peace. So, you know, I mean, I know I have like a crazy story and all that, but like, you don't have to go through all that to have hurt parts of your soul that have partnered with other things. And that pulls from our identity, which pulls from our authority, which steals from our destiny. So let's see, I skipped a hard time. So I just wrote some examples of holes. Pain, unforgiveness, self-hatred, anxiety, fears, trauma, abandonment, low self-worth. All these things, and we're human, like we all have something. So it's not this thing to feel overwhelmed about, you know. We all have something, it's just acknowledging it. Like the truth sets us free. It's really that simple. Once the Lord's light is on it, it's done. Amen. The darkness has to flee. So, and then here's some examples of masks that we use to patch up these holes instead of Jesus. And that's food, drugs, diagnoses. Like a lot of us can almost not want to be healed. You know, almost prefer to put more power in what the doctor says than what the doctor says. You know what I mean? And I've been in that mode too. I have a terrible neck injury, and I need surgery, and I'm just enduring it every day. Like I'm in so much pain. And pain will make you do things like David Kingsley always says, pain will make you do things you never thought you'd do, make you say things. And I've been in that place where there's days I can't even take care of myself or my kids. And it's like, man, Lord, all from a car wreck, someone on their phone on the freeway, but I'm totally guilty of that. So are we going to sue her? No, because she's just like me. And there's grace. I just felt the Lord said, nope, grace, you know, it's all good. So, rabbit trail. Here's examples. So that was diagnoses, and I've gotten prayer after prayer after prayer. And it's funny. I'm just like you guys. Like, yeah, I've been healed of HIV, but I've been getting hardened from prayer about my neck. Like after all I've seen and been through and walked through, I felt myself saying like, well, come back to the healing rooms and get prayer. I'm like, dude, I've been there. Come over it. And I'm like sitting all feeling sorry for myself. And I'm like, ooh. And I just, especially with this whole identity and really just being in the middle of it, like preparing for this message and where I'm at anyway, I thought I can see how easy it is. I could feel it almost like a blanket, like something behind me wanting to just let me just settle and just be in that. Like, no, it's cool. I've gotten a lot of prayers, and the guy would have healed me, or, you know, it's weird. It was just so spiritual. So we got to really be careful of that. It's okay to take medication until God heals us, but it's such a slippery slope. Make sure, you know, always check your heart. Like, is this become an identity? A crutch, something. Work, recognition, anger, avoidance, gossip, lack of intimacy with people or your spouse or God, lying, shopping. All these are just things we do. On our phone, I should have put the first one was on our phone. Facebook, social media, the whole thing. But all of these are clues that there's something underneath. And we, you know, that's again, there's no overwhelming, part of this message here. It's just trying to bring truth, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's freedom.
Amen.
I don't know about you, I want to be free. And it's like every time I uncover a layer and I think like, I've arrived, like something just so ugly in my heart rears its ugly head. It shocks me. I'm like, who the heck are you? It sucks. I'm telling you, this week I have not been the greatest person. I have been under stress and just said things, and I almost called you and said, I shouldn't even be up here talking. Like, I have really blown it this week. Like, but then I was like, no, I'll just tell him that and it'll be fine. I hope somebody's getting something out of this, man. Philippians. This is the best one. It's so good, dude. The word, man. Philippians 4:11-13. I am not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through Him who gives me strength. So that line, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength, that's a wonderful verse, but sometimes that's taken like way out of context, Paul is saying, I can get through anything and just cling to Christ. It's profound. And he doesn't say, I have Jesus now, so I know my identity, so I can be content in anything. He's learned, and boy did he. The stuff he went through, like he really knows what it is to be okay, in the middle of everything not being okay. I could just meditate on this verse of content. What does even content mean for all of us? Including myself, like, I think it's a Western mindset. It's like, we don't know the first thing sometimes about just waiting and pressing in for hours. Like in China, I heard their underground churches will meet, no instruments, none of that, singing, without instruments, talking to God, healing, praying, message after message, for hours and hours, like 13 hours. And they're so hungry and they're so filled. And they have like nothing. It's just amazing to see, like, I want to get to a place where I can just sit in the nothing and be like, okay, God, this is rising up. And I've been doing that, and God has been testing me in all that. I see where I've had so many opportunities the last couple weeks to grow. And honestly, I have failed most of those, but I'm learning. And I'm going, man, there I went it again. I just started running my mouth. Then I'm apologizing, and I still haven't even gone to God first, and it's like, okay, God. And then some I made it through. And I was on to the enemy. And so I have a disclaimer here because it's really important. Trauma-based. I'm doing a lot of healing right now to my limbic system. So there's a lot of patterns sometimes we can have in our life, and it's really embedded with trauma. And yes, we need prayer, and yes, we need to learn to stop covering it with whatever we do to run from that or overeat and everything, and just invite Jesus into those places. But in reality, so that's different than just a stronghold, In reality, like, our brain changes So for me, my brain, growing up, the nourishing part of my brain of reason is completely malnourished and underdeveloped. When you give a child a hug and stuff like that, the back of their brain just lights up and just these beautiful pathways form. But when you, when someone has to live in survival and all of this, the impulsive, scared, fear, fight, that fight or flight, that's all in the front of your brain, and that becomes overdeveloped. So like when you go to foster a kid or something, you have to do lots of classes because these children, they cannot help it. Like the front of their brain is physically overdeveloped and they're just in fight or flight. And the back, they don't know. So you have to really, it breaks my heart because you just think of these kids and people don't know that necessarily. It takes a lot of work. And I'm in the process of building new pathways and just trying to really help my limbic system because I've hit situations where it's fight or flight. I'm like, man, you'd think after all this time I would mature in that area. But so if you know that something is like a reactive pattern, it's good to know that too. Like really, really figure it out because don't put shame on yourself. The enemy will just love to set you up and then kick you when you're down. So I've been completely overwhelmed with shame, thinking, why can't I get this right? And here I am leading all these people, and here I am and then I do it again. And so now I know it's not, and again, there's that thing, it's not my identity. I'm not going to put a diagnosis as, oh, this is the way it is, but truth sets us free, so I can work on this. I can know, okay, I screwed up again. This is a fight or flight. This is a pattern that I've had my whole life, and it's going to be okay. So I'm just going to keep feeding the back of my brain. And if you want any more information about that, I'll tell you how I do that after, how I've been doing that. My way, my technique that people are helping me with. So, long story short, in what did I write? I'm so dramatic. In a fallen world in crisis. Oh my gosh. My kids are screaming, I've shut the door, they're banging on it. In a fallen world of crisis. When it comes to our state of lack, or more, I need more, or I don't have enough, I'm not enough, I need this, I'm ugly, I'm too fat, I'm this, I look like this, my nose, it's crazy how many thousands of thoughts we come into our brain on a daily basis, and it has such negative toxins in our brain, neuroplasticity. Science is finally catching up with the Word of God. It's crazy. So, I'm not really smart or anything. I just learned that. Somebody told me that. Just FYI. Neuroplasticity. I sounded really smart there for a second. That was cool. I gotta get glasses apparently. So next time you see me, I'll have glasses. I'll look super smart. I'll say big words like neuroplasticity and theological. Sorry guys, okay, I'm wrapping it up. Okay, what was the point? Here was the point. Oh, sometimes we don't get our prayers answered for increase, so this is another thing, for increase, etc., whatever that prayer is. I need new wineskin, new this, increase God, finances, because we fail to steward and appreciate what we have. So not only are we enough and all that, but everything we have and God's provided is enough. And He wants to see us multiply it. And so just like the parable of the talents, and does anyone not know that, or are we good?
We're good.
Okay. Guys, I don't even know where that is in the Bible. Whip out this huge Bible and be shoot. Should have had the parable tab for me. It's $15, someone tab it for you, but I think it's worth it. So anyway, the parable of the talents, but I always look at that as obviously not money, but talent, gifts, what we've been given, not that, fancy, good-looking, popular worshiper. You're not what they have, not what anybody else has, not trying to better ourselves to be like anybody else. Just what we have, what God's given us. But here's the catch. So this is really important. This is a big one. How well do you steward your gifts, your body, your time, your mouth? But this is the one God wanted me to really point out, and your pain. So it's like, how do we steward our pain? Like, man, that really sucks, you know? But really, the Lord's been showing me lately how He wants us to steward our pain. And He certainly doesn't want us to bury it and sit on it and then, see Him face to face. And He's like, what'd you do with all that? Because our greatest pain is truly our greatest treasure. It's where we meet God in the deepest places. It's where we get to know who we really are. But at the same time, it's still this journey. So there's just exhale. Just exhale. And as long as you're in that place of discovery and willingness with the Lord and just giving it to Him, and every day is just a day, we only have enough grace for a day. He didn't like the manna. And we all know that, and I always have to pray that. I'm like, dang it, I spent half of my grace that I frickin' had already on stressing out. But all this stuff, I don't even have that much grace left. How am I going to split that up? And God's like, it's not money and drugs. Stop it. Just calm down. You're doing it again. You're spending it right now just doing that. I'm like, oh my gosh, how much grace did I have today? Did I get an extra measure? Whew, this is stressful. Oh man. And you can just hear God just drumming his fingers, waiting for me to, breathe. So anyway, I believe we're called to be good stewards of our pain. And humanity's pain. So, in the midst of all this, it's still not really about us at the same time, but it still is. So, if you never did anything for anyone else in the world again, and you just sat on your floor and colored with Jesus, you would still have such an amazing time with Him. And everything is always an invitation. So I've been working on anxiety. I've been working on one thing at a time with the limbic system and growing new pathways with new ways of thinking, and you just have to fight. This isn't oh, hey, today I'm going to read some positive affirmation and, I'm not punch my fist through a wall. But I don't do that, I promise. But I've wanted to. And I've had to really, fight. I can't be passive. I have a family now. All these holes, these open doors, it goes right to them. I'm a steward of them. I'm a steward of all of it. And anyway, so it's an invitation with the pain, with whatever it is. See, when we bury something instead of dealing with it, it keeps us in areas of bondage and having open doors, which prevent us from truly embracing all that we are with Jesus. That's I guess my point here with identity, and I probably sound like a broken record, but who we really are is Jesus in us, in all of our mess. And that's the most beautiful part. He doesn't want us to clean ourselves up. He wants to do that. That's the whole point. And the truth is, it was all really taken care of at the cross. But the stuff that we're working on, it's all an invitation to go deeper. Deep calls to deep, and it's we invite Him to those deep places, and then He takes us to His deep places. God is a real person. He loves intimacy and relationship. And the enemy's just such a liar, and all this religious crap. everything that tries to just steal from us. Even God time. I had a few days in a row I had great God time, which was like a miracle. And I'm learning how to read with noise, and I've never been able to do that. I'm almost not even a good reader. Just my brain. And so God has stretched me where I can read my Bible with the kids doing stuff and the TV on. I can't even read if there's like worship music on before. I couldn't think, like my brain can't, it was just bizarre. So I prayed and prayed, and so reading and had all this God time, and then I missed a few days. Every time I sat down, something happened. And finally, like the third day of no God time, I truly just wanted coffee. And I'm drinking my coffee, and then the kids woke up, and it was over. Like, that was it. And I was like, oh, and it was just going to be like a crazy day. So I started just apologizing to God. I'm like, so sorry, I knew we had this time, and I just sat on my butt. Then I drank coffee, and I went to Facebook. I'm like, so tired, and I'm so sorry, Lord, we didn't have a chance to hang out this morning. And then just almost audible, he says, what are you talking about? We are hanging out. And it, again, just all of that just turns to dust. It's like, you're right. There I was, making it like some thing, like, hey, hi, sorry we didn't hang out. And he's like right here. He's like, what are you talking about? We're hanging out. Don't get all religious on me now, Eli. So, I already said that. So, we can yo-yo diet, keep trying to be better, be enough, fill all these spaces and places and empty noise with other things, but it always leads back to our heart. Awesome verse, that Christ will be more and more at home in your hearts as you trust in him. I am the bread which is life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry. Sorry for errors there. And whoever trusts me will never be thirsty. That's John 6. I forgot to put the thing down. But I just love that. I've leaned on that verse for fasting, but lately God's that's just come alive. It's like, why do I always have to need something? Why am I overeating? I mean, obviously I have lots of layers, and I've gotten a lot of healing from pain and stuff, but it's like, I can't wait to find out who I am without all that. And I feel, and then just a side note, Jesus was so close to the Father that he was fully motivated by love, and he knew how to take everything to God. Like, Jesus wasn't just some superhuman that didn't have to fight every day to not sin. Like, he went through it all, and he was tempted with everything, and he didn't even get offended. But the only way he did that was, one, I've just been pondering this lately and just having a good time, just thinking about all of it, but he wasn't motivated every day with like, okay, I can't sin. He was completely motivated by love. You would have to be. Like, if someone spit in my face and slapped me and falsely accused me, and to not rise up and even speak to defend yourself, the only way he did that was, one, pressing into God, but also he knew that person. That person was fully known by him, and he loved him, and it actually broke his heart because he didn't understand. So, like, I think about all that, I'm like, man, it's just deep. But final thought, 8 o'clock, okay. Final thought is, what I feel the Lord wants to say. The Lord has so much he wants to give us, but he needs us to give up the things we keep running to for comfort, for a quick fix, the things that take away from true intimacy with him. I don't know about you, so many times I waste time watching TV, social media, and I don't mean, again, this isn't religion. I just mean in the depths of our heart, how often have I felt that whisper, like, let's hang out, let's read let's do this, and I'm like, I'm tired. the kids are finally asleep. I'm just going to sit here and zone out and watch Dr. Phil. I'm 3 episodes behind. Guy really sold out, but it's all right. The greatest journey we will ever have is learning to walk more and more in our true identity. That person God has always known, the person we were created to be, without any hats, masks, anything. We are in a time where the heart matters more than ever. And that was just, I guess that's it. I mean, I hope somebody got something out of all this. So yeah, for me, I wanted a time of ministry time. I just feel like everyone's so different in here. Some of us, God's bringing up an old hurt, that it just won't go away. It's so deep, it hurts so bad, and maybe God's just bringing up something like, when everyone leaves, you just start overeating, or there's all these things, but I would say just take one thing right now, or whatever God's on your heart, and if He's bringing up anything on your heart, and give it to Him. Just seek Him, ponder that. Just invite Him into whatever that is, whatever it looks like. It might not even be this thing that gets healed right now. Maybe God wants to take your hand and walk you through the hardest but greatest journey of your life. And there's reasons He doesn't heal things right away. Like for me, He wanted me to walk through it with Him. And my darkest pain has become my greatest asset. And it's the most broken places I've just been so close to the Lord. It's easy to forget that or run from that. But I'm working on that. I'm working on running. I run to food. If anyone hasn't noticed, I've gained some weight. But I run when I get into it with my husband. It's like I immediately go into fight or I'm out, and that sucks because I don't mean that. I don't want to do that. I don't. And there I am, that same pattern again. So there's lots of things. Our real identity, I think, is that peace, the Prince of Peace. And God just sort of starting to remove some of these things that are really getting in the way of that discovery. And that's it.
Amen.
Yeah, I'm going to play a song. Really great song. If you haven't heard it, the words are on your last page on the back. Because I just really just take a little bit of time with the Lord. If not, sing along with the song. I don't know if but if there's something that God brought up, or anything in your notes, anything that you're thinking about right now with the Holy Spirit, I just feel to take a little bit extra time. Again, I don't want this to just be some goosebump message. Like, I want our hearts to be awakened, and that's the actual real meaning of revelation. It gets thrown around a lot, but it means the eyes of the heart are awakened, and you change. Not just, oh, hey, that was great, and then tomorrow, but something, just a little something, whatever it is. So yeah, just enjoy this song. It's called Still by Amanda Cook, and it's just a great song. So just take some time. Thank you.